In this short film, I will present 5 attractions of Lubeck: the Cathedral, Town Hall, St. Mary's Church, St. James's Church, and the Holy Spirit Hospital. For starters, a few words about Lubeck itself. The city founded by Henry the Lion, Duke of Saxony. This is the gentleman from the medieval manuscript. This prince around 1158 conquered the Slavs who inhabited these areas. 2 years later, Lubeck received city rights, and this date can be taken as the beginning of the Hanseatic League. In later years, the city became one of the most important centers of the Hanseatic League. What was Hansa? The Hanseatic League was an association of merchants or trading cities. It reached from the Netherlands through Westphalia, Saxony to Lithuania. Cities belonging to the Union supported each other in the economic field and at the same time hindered the work of merchants from towns belonging to the Union. Thus, it was a real political and often also military force. In the 16th, Lubeck fell in conflict with Denmark, which led to the loss of its position. We will focus on the monuments from the period of splendor, mainly from the Gothic period, and brick Gothic at that, because due to the lack of other building material, the buildings were built of brick. The first object we visit is Lubeck Cathedral, one of Lubeck's few churches. Unfortunately, during the Allied air raid on Palm Sunday 1942, part of the vault collapsed, the spire collapsed, and the organ was destroyed. An archival photo shows the degree of destruction of the cathedral. Despite the damage, we can admire the elements of the original interior. Among others, the triumphal cross was saved. The triumphal cross is a typical part of medieval churches, placed above the presbytery, in the place where the priests are during the Mass and where the altar is located. The cross is usually accompanied by other figures. In addition to the cross on the beam, we find the figure of Mary Magdalene with a typical gesture of clasped hands. In addition, we can see the founder, Albert Krumadick. The whole was made in the workshop of Bert Nauka, a resident of Lubeck, a brilliant medieval artist. In addition to the triumphal cross, Nauka made the cladding, most of the carvings of the rood screen in the cathedral. As an explanation, the rood screen is a kind of partition separating the space intended for priests or monks from the part where lay people stayed. Also, the rood screen presents the highest level of medieval craftsmanship. Also noteworthy is the Gothic baptismal font from 1455. In the central part of the old town, another attraction, the impressive Town Hall. Brick structure built with red and black glazed. The northern part was built in the 13th century. This part was decorated with a Renaissance loggia made of white stone. Interestingly, the stone comes from Gotland. It should be mentioned here that Lubeck maintained a trade partnership with the Swedes, so this material is for this reason. The rest of the town hall is from the 15th century, and the reference to the Dutch Renaissance is definitely visible. St. Mary's Church in Lubeck is located right next to the town hall. It is one of the first buildings of brick Gothic architecture, and served as a model for about 70 churches in the Baltic Sea region, so this church can be called the Mother of Churches. The church is 102 meters long, 56 meters wide, and 125 meters high. Interestingly, the church has the highest brick vault in the world. The vault is located 38 meters above the nave. Unfortunately, the church was completely burnt down during the air raids on March 1942. Among other things, the organs and a large number of medieval sculptures were damaged. A reminder of this event are the remains of the bells that were destroyed as a result of the collapse of the South Tower. One of the interesting objects that can be seen in the church is the medieval baptismal font. After visiting St. Mary's Church, we take a break, try typical Lubeck sweets, that is, we visit a cafe specializing in marzipan sweets. It is also a place where you can buy marzipan in any shape and size. Another church worth visiting is the Church of St. James, a three-nave Gothic hall church, where all naves have the same height. The main altar that we see today comes from the 18th century, created by Hieronym Hassenberg and funded by the mayor Hermann Radi, whose bust is on the altar. In the back you can see the Baroque organ. An interesting fact is the very well-preserved Bach's pews, characteristic of evangelical churches. Not far from the Church of St. James, there is another tourist attraction, the medieval Hospital of the Holy Spirit. The building is the quintessence of brick Gothic. It was founded by wealthy Lubeck merchants. Interestingly, the institution founded in the Middle Ages still operates as a foundation, although during the Reformation the hospital was converted into a secular nursing home. Another interesting fact is that the hospital and currently the nursing home belongs to a lot of land in the vicinity of Lubeck currently managed by the city. Thanks to such solutions, the hospital was a self-financing institution. Hospital residents initially lay in one large room and were subject to a rule similar to the monastic rule. They were provided with board and lodging, and they were entitled to a warm bath as many as 8 times a year, so they couldn't complain. The best preserved part of the hospital is the chapel with rood screen. It is decorated with a rib vault characteristic of the Gothic style and large frescoes also from the Gothic style. The rood screen is also Gothic. As a reminder, the rood screen is a structure separating the laity from the clergy during the Mass. On the rood screen we can see the representation of the legend of Saint Elizabeth. There are 2 altars in the chapel. One must admit that one depicts quite macabre scenes. Next to the chapel, you can still see the hall with rooms for residents built in 1820. Each room has an area of 4 square meters and, interestingly, many of them have the names of the old tenants. The premises were used until 1970. I hope you like this episode about selected sites of Lubeck. If so, give a like.